Hey everybody, it's Vanessa, the Crafty Gemini. Welcome to WIP Wednesday, episode number 145. I think I got that right. I'm trying to stay up on it every single week. I can't believe we're up to 145 episodes of my weekly live show. So if you're new here, welcome. The WIP, W-I-P in WIP Wednesday stands for work in progress. And so it's usually just a weekly live show where I'm sharing something I'm working on, doing some type of a demo, a tutorial, a sale maybe that's going on, unboxings, machine, tools, supply reviews, just where I come on to chat with you live about all the different types of crafts and projects and things that I tend to do. So welcome everybody that is joining us live right now. Let's pop into the chat and let me know where you're tuning in from. I see we have Irene from upstate New York. Hi Irene. It's raining on and off here. We're in north central Florida, so coming to you from hot and humid Florida. Let's see, we got Caroline in the house from Arizona. We got Diane from Long Island. Hi Diane. Jan from Palm Harbor here in Florida. We got Pamela from Frederick, Maryland. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Susie. Hi, Linda. Miss Deborah's in the house from Port St. Lucie, Florida. Cool. We got friends from all over tuning in, and I'm going to take that as a yes, so you can see me and hear me. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a few different things to share with y'all today, and we're going to do a little quilt block demo using my Stripology squared ruler. For those of you that are not familiar with Stripology, definitely check out my friend Gudrun's stuff. She designs amazing patterns. We'll talk a little bit about one of her books because I am working on a quilt from it, and I thought, you know, this block is so great. It's so easy. I thought it would be a great way to kind of highlight the Stripology rulers and show you, those of you that have the ruler already, or maybe you kind of have seen different blocks. If maybe the blocks that you have seen seem a little bit too intricate, or like you have to, you know, bounce around measuring different lines and it just feels so overwhelming for you, I think this block is a little easy and the block is a good size. So keep watching, and hopefully this will either get you to pull out your Stripology squared or XL ruler. I'm going to be using just my Stripology squared ruler today. So everything that I'll be showing you is specifically for that ruler. If you need to find any of the items that I'm going to be showing you and sharing with you here today on this live show, make sure to check the description box. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're tuning in on Facebook, just check the caption, because in the description there, we go ahead and include all the links, as well as my buddy over here is going to be copying and pasting different links for y'all in the live chat, which tends to work easily if you are on live right now with us, okay, for you to watch back. We also do, I think, a chat live chat replay, so those of you that are watching on the replay can also go ahead and find those links, okay? All right. Hi, Donnie girl. She says, aloha from Hawaii. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and give everybody my over-the-shoulder camera shot. Did you see my little panda shirt? This is the little panda shirt I made from my Westchester Dolman top years ago. I love these shirts. Anyways, anybody that's wondering out there, because I know we recently did a sew-along for my Westchester Dolman top, this is the fabric I use, is double-brushed polyester spandex. Lightweight. It works out great for that pattern. So if you have some or you're thinking about making one, check out DBP, which is double brush poly spandex, okay? All right. Yes, Diana says even bag makers can love the Stripology ruler. Absolutely. So this is a new fabric bundle that we just stocked for y'all. And every time I stock my half-yard bundles, they sell out super quick. So we went ahead and doubled up the number of bundles that we have. Instead, normally if y'all have bought the half-yard bundles from me before, I usually have 5 half-yard bundles for a total of 2.5 yards, but we went ahead and added 6 this time. They're at a discounted price, so if you're looking to add some fun new fabrics in these really cool colors, these are all from the same collection. The collection is called Fruity. The designer is, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Maja Faber, and it's for Paintbrush Studio fabric. So you know this is designer quality quilting cottons, a really great hand and some really pretty colors. These are 6 fabrics from the same collection, and you get 6 half-yard cuts. So you get a total of 3 yards. It's at a great price. Okay, and again, they're half-yard cuts. I thought these were just so cute. We're going to be using this fabric. I'm going to show you how I starch, press, prep, cut, and make the block. So we're going to go beginning to end on how to make this cool little block using my Stripology ruler and some of these fun fabrics. If you want to get your hand on this half-yard bundle, which is a total of 3 yards of fabric, go ahead and use the link. We put it in the chat for you. It's in our shop. You can check the featured tab and you'll see it there as well. Okay, and I'm just going to I think you can see them. Some of the prints, I like these because sometimes we get either really large scale designs and then really small ones, but this has a good balance. Look how fun that is. For those of you that make bags, home decor items, placemats, lunch boxes. I think this fruity collection would be so cute for that. And of course, you get a half yard. If you like to make pouches, purses, bags, and little things like that for different gifts, you could end up making several different smaller type pouch projects and coordinate the fabrics, you know, differently. Maybe a dark on the outside, quilted, and use one of the lighter fabrics on the inside for the lining. But we have good contrast here. I love that it's like this tealy color. Y'all know I love my minty aquas and teal colors. And this is such a fun dark one. It has pears and it's on a navy blue background. Isn't that pretty? Look at that, how cool. Well, we have a bunch of these bundles in stock right now. If you're watching us live and you're on my email newsletter list, hopefully, then you got first dibs on it. And so hopefully, you know, if you want it, you're able to get it before it sells out, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So the block we're gonna be making is this one. There are a ton of different ways to make this type of a block. Some of us may know it by cutting squares and then cutting 4 more squares and just snowballing the corners. This is a technique of applying a square to the side edge of another square on point like this, folding it back and then trimming it down to size. But this block I got from the Stripology Mixology 3 book. Thanks to Gudrun, shout out to her because I feel like I get lazier and lazier with designing quilts because I don't have to. I have my Stripology rulers. I just look through her books and I'm like, oh, that's easy and quick enough. I have a baby shower in a couple weeks and so I need to crank out a baby quilt. It came quicker than I thought, so I've already gotten started, and the quilt that I ended up choosing is from the Stripology Mixology 3. Those of you that have been tuning into the live show may recall another quilt that I made for my daughter last summer before the kids went off to summer camp, and I used Stripology Mixology 2 for one of those quilts. Well, I have all 3 of these guys, and this block comes out of Stripology Mixology 3. Now, I'm an affiliate for GE Design, so for Gudrun's business, and I put my affiliate links in the caption of the Facebook post as well as the description of the YouTube video. So you can head on over there and it will link you right to the book. They sell this book also on her site. She sells it as an ebook. So if you don't like hard copy books, I don't know who would not want a hard copy book. I need to like feel the books. I'm definitely one of those. But you could get the ebook version of it too, and she has that on her site. So this block comes from the Kimberly quilt, okay? And it's this quilt that we see here. Look how fun. And these fabrics are super busy, so I'm glad that they put this type of a design up there so that we can see that, I mean, there is that contrast of darks and lights, right? You can look at one of the blocks and say, okay, the outside is maybe the dark, the inside plays as the light, so we get a lot of visual interest and contrast. The next block over here, the outside background is the light, and then the inside square that's set on point is the dark. And so you can alternate them like that to get some really, really cool looking quilts. So that's that one. And then I just wanted to show y'all here that the design in the book is included in all these sizes. So crib, lap, twin, full, queen, and king. And so it tells you exactly how much fabric you need, how to cut out, you know, how many squares you need to start off with. And this is an easy block because we're going to start off with 10-inch by 10-inch squares, okay? We trim them down to what you see here, which is trimmed down to 9 inches square, which means that once it's sewn into the quilt or a table runner or whatever project, it's going to finish at 8.5 inches square. If you're a quilter, you know, that's a pretty decent size block, okay? We're not working with little teensy ones, so that also tells me I can make it faster, which I, of course, always love, okay? So that was out of Stripology Mixology 3. There's 14 quilts in here in all those different sizes, and I'm just mentioning it because that's the one that I'm making it, or I'm making a baby quilt from that, and it's called the Kimberly, okay? So here is the block. Isn't that cute? I love the way that these fabrics go together. And so I started off with a 10-inch square block of the kiwi fabric and a 10-inch square block of this orange, but the lemons are white on it, okay? And so we went ahead, I sliced them up with the Stripology ruler, I swapped the pieces, and then we sew it back together, and we end up with 2 finished blocks, okay, from the same 2 10-inch squares. So I think that's super fun, and it's a great way to use up the yardage, right? If you have your own yardage, cut up your own 10-inch squares, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm not going to use a Stripology for it just because I'm going to cut out just one. If I was going to cut out a bunch, then I would use my Stripology XL ruler and cut out a bunch. Okay, awesome. I see Laura in the chat says fabric purchased. Awesome. So for those of you that maybe are just tuning in, we're selling a 3-yard total bundle, half yard each of these 6 different fabrics from the Fruity collection by Maja Faber for Paintbrush Studio fabrics. Okay, so that is the link for the fabric bundle. For those of you that want to grab it, go ahead and grab it. And I did want to show you, because sometimes, you know, you see a fabric bundle, you're like, yeah, it's a collection, they go together, but it hits differently when you see the fabric side by side, right? Actually sewn together. And this is such a cool color palette. I feel like it's different than you would normally see for something that has to do with fruits. Usually we see like really bold, super bright colors, and this has like a more muted kind of cooler vibe almost. So let's go ahead and give it a try. This one, what I did was I cut out a square of each of the 2 fabrics, and I wanted it to play like one is the dark, one is the light. I don't have that much contrast here, but you can see, I think, on camera here that it still works, okay? This one almost feels like the light here, and this, because the orange is a little bit darker, pulls as the dark, even though we have large spaces of the white lemons, okay? Same thing here. Now this one, for me, personally, plays almost like the light and this as a little bit darker. But it kind of works both ways. So I'm really happy with the fabrics and the way that they go together. So yes, Sonia says, I love me another Stripology project. Yes, and Jamie says that fabric is so cute. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, Jamie. All right, so let's go ahead and scoot these 2 blocks out of the way, and we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to start. So I pulled 2 other fabrics from the collection, so you can kind of start to see them side by side. And you know what I'll do is, maybe I'll put these guys here, just so that as we're going through the demo, y'all can kind of keep an eye on the fabrics and see what we're working with and what you might want to work with at home when you get these if you order the bundle from our site. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm definitely missing fabrics. I'll grab this one. Oh, I know why, because I grabbed the whole bundle. The strawberry bundle is the one I'm about to cut up on camera for y'all. So we'll do that. Oh, they're so cute. And it's not, I don't know, the colors aren't super bright. Like, it doesn't scream summer to me. It's very like fruity and fun, but super versatile, I think. Okay, so there they are. You can't really see them too much on the camera, but I'm gonna see if I can get this here a little bit. Okay, so I cut out 1 10-inch square already. I'm gonna use this as my dark, and this is going to be my light. So if we look at these 2 blocks, you already know, if I use these 2, I'm definitely going to get some really good visual contrast, and you're going to easily be able to see, hey, this is a dark, this is the light. So when this one, the pear print is inside and this is on the outside, that's really going to stand out because it's going to be a lot darker than the background. And the same thing here. When I use the pear for the outside and the strawberry print for the inside, I think it's really going to give us some fun pop of color. And that way, when you end up with 2 blocks of each, you can, when you go to your design wall and start putting up your blocks before you figure out the full design layout, you'll really be able to sprinkle, right, different fabrics around. And I'm just showing y'all the block with this fabric because, you know, we're featuring the half-yard bundle here, but I mean, you could still make a bunch of blocks. You probably just don't have enough to make like a big enough quilt to use all these fabrics, okay? But because they're half yards and you're cutting 10-inch squares. But anyways, let's move on. I'm going to scoot these guys out the way. I'm going to set this guy aside. And actually, let me scoot all of this out the way before I mistakenly cut into my blocks or my yardage. Let's go ahead and open this up. I'm going to start sharing some beginner tips for those of you that maybe want to get into quilting or maybe not even into making big quilts. You could take these blocks and put them together and make a big tote bag, right? You don't need that many to make a table runner, to make a tote bag, to make a throw pillow for the couch. There's a lot of different ways that we can use quilt blocks for other types of projects without feeling like, oh my goodness, I have to tackle, you know, a queen size quilt or something, okay? Awesome, Gladys says she got her bundle, yay! All right, let's grab my ironing board. And here's my #1 tip for beginners. When you're cutting out your own squares and you're getting ready to make blocks like these, for those of you that know anything about grain line, you probably already can see that we have diagonal seams here, which means that these pieces are cut on the bias. And if you know anything about lengthwise grain, crosswise grain, and bias, you know that out of the 3 grain lines, the bias stretches the most, okay? Well, what can happen if we have the stretchiest grain line running along here? Well, if you don't have a lot of experience working with fabrics that are cut on the bias, you can easily distort this and end up with either a wonky seam, a block that's like stretched out, and then you're wondering, why did I have to trim off so much? Did I stretch it a lot? Maybe it thins out here because you stretched it out a lot here. You can really run into a bunch of issues which are no fun. Say you're making a quilt with 48 blocks. You're not going to want to have to deal with that 48 times. Trust me. Okay, so we're going to set this aside. So here's my number one tip. Starch. Not everybody can starch. Not everybody likes to starch. If you can't spray the starch or you can't breathe starch in or anything like that, consider maybe dipping it in a starch and just letting it dry overnight and then going in and pressing it with an iron to get it nice and flat, right? The thing with the starch is that it makes the fabric crispy. And the crispier and more paper-like your fabric is, the absolute easiest, it sets you up for the easiest way to cut and to sew with minimal distortion, okay? So if you pre-wash your fabric in the washer and the dryer and you get rid of all the sizing that's in it already, and then you just come and iron it flat with no starch, and you're a beginner and you don't have a lot of experience, you're going to be saying a few choice words about me, and it's not my fault. It's not my fault, okay? What I would say is starch if you can. Any type of, it doesn't even have to be like starch. It can be whatever sizing. It can be some type of a spray or a dip, you know, that you make yourself or that you buy, but that is going to stiffen that fabric a little bit more. It's going to make it just a lot easier. Yes, Windless Original says vodka water starch is a starch that you can use, that she can use. So you can absolutely do that. It doesn't matter what it is. I just want you to stiffen up the fabric. Think about that. The stiffer the fabric is, the easier it will be to get accurate cuts and accurate seams, okay? So I'm just using here the Niagara Heavy Finish, the faultless one, and I'm just going to starch it. I just want to get it pretty good and saturated. If it bubbles up a little bit like that because I sprayed too long in that one spot, I just let the fabric absorb it first, and then we're just going to take a hot, dry iron. That's why I don't have my steam iron set up. I'm trying to starch up this whole area. Any little spots that I see that are dry, I just give it another little mist, give it a few seconds so that the fabric can absorb it, and then we're just going to take a hot, dry iron. Let me kickstart this, make sure it's on. And I'm just going to press it flat until it's fully dry, okay? And that's it. I'm just going to cut my 10-inch square from this chunk, so I'm not even going to starch the rest of it right now since we're just doing a little demo here. But you'll see it start to create even a little bit of steam if you starched it really good. And what that's also doing is kind of like a cheater version of pre-shrinking, because anytime we add heat and moisture to cotton fabric, it's going to shrink a little, okay? So instead of having to wash all this fabric, if you're impatient like me and want to start your project right when you get your fabric, then you can always steam it to pre-shrink it a little bit. You can starch it anytime you add moisture, some type of a moisture, and the heat of the iron, okay? You're going to be pre-shrinking it a little bit. And nowadays, anyways, the good quality, like designer quality fabrics like this, they only shrink about 1 to 3% max, so it's not really going to affect the finished project, especially in a quilt or some type of home deck project. If you're making it for garments, if you're going to be using quilting cartons to make some garments, definitely pre-wash it, because then you're dealing with a project that needs to be sized and needs to fit a specific form, right? The body. And so you don't want it to shrink after you wear it one time and then, you know, wash it. Okay, so I'm checking to make sure everything is fully dry. Looks good and crispy. And it's not like super stiff. I mean, it's still, you know, like a medium weight cotton fabric, but I do want it to be stiff enough that I can easily cut through it and it's not just like flopping around on me. All right, so we're going to get rid of the selvage first. And this is exactly how you would do it at home, especially if you're new to this kind of stuff. I'm going to cut off straight here just to get rid of the selvage. And I'm measuring along that cut edge because that's the one that got cut off the bolt more straight than the bottom edge. Okay, so now I have a clean cut edge here. I'm going to take my big ruler just because this guy is bigger than the 10 inches, so I can do it in one cut. So I'm placing 10-inch line of my ruler on the cut edge, okay? And that tells me now, once I get it there, here's 10 inch. Y'all know I like to slide my rulers. Not everybody does. Some people like to add grip to them. I like to slide them up because if it's a long, tall piece of fabric, I want to make sure that that distance from here to here is still 10 inches all the way up and all the way down. So I slide. but you know, everybody ends up with their own method. So that's 10 inches. So that means whatever I have underneath this ruler is what I want to cut. You'll notice I have a second ruler here. A lot of you probably already know my 2-ruler method of how I like to cut fabrics is 1 to measure, 1 to cut. Okay, so this ruler doesn't quite reach the full height, so I can't just use the 1 ruler and try and cross over and cut. So I'm using the shorter square ruler to measure 10 inches over. And all I did is bump up the strip ruler, the longer one that does span the full height of my yardage here, right next to it. So now this has been measured, and it's 10 inches. I can remove the measuring ruler and now just cut using the cutting ruler. Okay, so that's how I do it. And then we're going to turn it, trim a sliver off of this side. Okay, just to straighten it off. And then we can do the same thing. I can put the 10-inch line here, and I can see exactly what I need is underneath this ruler, 10 by 10. Now, I like to cut 10-inch pre-cut squares. You know, some people have or collect those layer cakes, like 10-inch by 10-inch stacks. You got to be careful though, because not all of them are the same size. So if you go into it thinking, oh yeah, it's a 10-inch by 10-inch square stack, and assume that they all measure exactly 10 inches square, you're going to be in for some disappointing times, okay? So double check them. I like when they're a little bit bigger than 10 inches because I can actually take my time, go through each one and trim it up so that I can actually work from it. But if they're shorter, smaller in any direction than 10-inch by 10-inch, you may be better off using those for a specific project where it doesn't matter that it be exactly 10 by 10, or maybe you're cutting it up and piecing a quilt block out of it that then gets trimmed down further. That might work, okay, because you have a little bit less, but you might be able to make it work. So just be careful with that. I get that a lot. A lot of students are like, oh, I thought this was 10-inch by 10-inch, and they start making the blocks, and then when they go to trim them down, they're all off all over the place because they started off with a square that wasn't quite 10 by 10. Okay. Diana says she likes to slide her rulers too. Awesome. Okay. Oh yes, Windless Original says, I love using quilt blocks to make hot pads, trivets, anything like that. If you're putting a big casserole dish, you can put maybe 4 blocks, 6 blocks together and make like a good, a cute, you know, decorative home deck piece. And I like making those types of table runners and things. Y'all know me. If you've watched me in recent years, I make a lot of those types of things for Christmas time, holidays, parties and stuff where we entertain, or for Halloween. And what I like about them also is that it's a quilt. You can have a totally different design or fabric on the underneath backing side and use it either way, right? Especially if we just bind it like we do quilts, the binding is reversible, right? It looks the same on one side than it does the other. So they're great for home decor type projects. All right. Okay, so here we go. We got our 2 squares, 1 and 2. Now we're going to bring out the Stripology ruler. And for those that are tuning in, we're working on this block that I got from the Stripology Mixology 3 book, this guy. It's the Kimberly quilt, this one, okay? And I'm just going to show you how to make one block, okay? We're starting off with 10-inch by 10-inch squares. Now, if you don't have a Stripology ruler, highly recommend it. Keep watching the demo. After today, you might be like, yeah, I might need that. And there's so many different ways that you can use it, okay? Isn't this cute? Look at this little strawberry print. Now, strawberries, pears, these types of fruits are directional, right? If they have the little flower at the top, you know that that's how it goes up. But I love what they did with this design because they put one stripe of it upside down and one going up. So it turns it into a non-directional print. So you can use it any which way. Cool. Okay. Same thing with the pears. It's a tossed design. So the pears are going every which way. Now we have a dark and a light, which is usually how you want to do it. So you get enough visual contrast. I'm placing one on top of the other. Pretty sides, both of them facing up. Okay. Make sure everything matches. See, this is the part where I'm like, I like to cut my own because many of you know that cutting is my absolute most favorite part of quilting. I know I'm in the minority, but I love cutting. So for me to cut out 1,000 10-inch by 10-inch squares, I'd be in heaven. I'd hand it off to one of y'all to sew. You could do that part. I'm not interested. The sewing is so boring and monotonous to me. But, you know, we got to do it to get to the finished project. Believe it or not, that is how I feel. Okay. So I've turned it on point. And in quilting, that's what we call when we take a square, instead of having the 90-degree angles on the corners, we turn it like this, more like into a diamond shape, okay? Now here's the Stripology squared ruler. This is not the biggest one. It's not the smallest one. It's a good size one to start. And actually, I put the link, my affiliate link, on where you can get this directly from Gudrun's site. It's not that much more than the mini. So if you have the mini already, maybe you did a table runner with me earlier in the year where we used the mini, consider getting this one, because you could do a lot with this, and you could even trim up 12.5-inch blocks, which, you know, if you're into quilting, you know that's kind of a popular size. So this one would get you there, okay? We're using the Stripology ruler. What else did I want to mention before I start cutting? Oh, they fell. No wonder I couldn't find them. So the ruler stickers, these are G-Easy ruler stickers. There's 3 sheets in here, and that's what you'll see that I have on my Stripology Squared. For every Stripology project, I go in and put in the little arrows in different colors. I just used the green and the blue here. I usually will change up the color. Like if I'm cutting here first, I'll do one color down here. If I need to measure or trim up with a different area, like different lines on here, then I'll use another color. Okay, and so that's what you can do. There's a pink, a green, and a blue, and we sell it also. We have these in our online shop. I set it in the featured tab for our shop. I don't think it's in the caption. I forgot to put it in there. But you can find this on my website. Just type in ruler stickers and you'll find it, or just click on featured and you'll see them there. So these have a bunch. You can't really see them because they're in there, but you can see from the ones that are missing here. They are repositionable, reusable. I keep some here stuck to the side of my cutting mat so that I can use them when I need them. So that's why I have not gone into the pack anymore, okay? All right. Yes, Brenda says the ruler stickers are wonderful to use. They are great. And if you have like a really fine Sharpie, you could even write on them if you needed to, you know, for different directions, or, you know, trim or something, you know, you could put a measurement in there if you needed to, anything like that. Okay. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Margie, for sharing her vodka recipe there. She says to make vodka starch, use 2 parts distilled water and 1 part vodka, for anybody who wants to try. I know I've been saying for years I'm going to make it, Margie. I even have the vodka. I sent my, look at him, he's nodding his head. I sent him to the liquor store and told him to get me the cheapest vodka he could find. And do you know what they told him at the liquor store? What'd they tell you? I hope you don't plan to drink that. And he was like, no, it's some sewing thing for my wife. That's hilarious. So I do have to make, I have it there. It's in the pantry, but thank you, Margie. Now that I've read it out loud, 2 parts distilled water to 1 part vodka. That's so easy. I should do that. And then I can put it in my little mist bottle here. Okay. And we do sell these in the shop too. It's a nice light mist. So I'm going to try that and see. I keep saying I'm going to try it, but I should try that for sure, because I want to see how light of a covering, you know, like how crispy it'll make my fabric if I give it a light mist of that. Okay. Okay. So Stripology ruler, 10 by 10. And remember, this is Stripology squared. So if you use my link and you're trying to get your hands on this ruler, you're going to see a bunch of rulers there. So make sure that you're getting the Stripology squared if you're trying to get the same one that I'm doing here. And again, I'm showing you where you're going to be cutting for this specific ruler size. You could do this with the bigger one, with the XL, okay, as well. But the smaller one won't work because the block is, you start off bigger, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so here we go. There are, and it's tricky to see, but I think you can see it there. There are white lines and there are black lines on the Stripology ruler. Look right here. You see this line? This is white. Okay, you can see it behind, and I can point them out here. There's white lines and there are black lines. It can be super overwhelming, and I think I saw in the chat earlier when we started, somebody said, I have the ruler, but I'm scared to use it or something. It happens. When you look at this, you're thinking, whoa, I have no idea what to do. So that's why I wanted to do this demo and just do 1 block at a time. We have 2 10-inch by 10-inch squares stacked, a light and a dark, okay? Next step is going to be to line up the white line. There's one going this way and one going this way. It basically splits the Stripology squared ruler into quadrants. Okay, so that's all you got to focus on, a big plus sign of white lines. And I'm going to line those white lines up so that the vertical one is going right through this point and coming out right through here. And then the horizontal white line needs to be going right across here. Easy, okay? Keep your eye on 4 corners and make sure that you have the big center white lines going through both. So I'm going to start there. I started at the top I put my white ruler there, and I think you can see it. And see down here, it's not quite to the fabric, so I'm just going to slide it down. It makes it easier for me to see. And I think you can see that because the fabric is dark. That's pretty good. So white line is running right here. We see that, right? Now let's check this horizontal white line. It's going right through the point there, and here it's just a hair off. So we're just going to scoot it, and then scoot, and just still make sure that everything else. That's it. That's all it took, okay? I put the 2 squares stacked, pretty sides facing up, and we put the Stripology squared ruler on top, and we're just running across right through the 4 corners. Easy. Now, the 2, let me scoot this down. My 2 stickers, there they are. My 2 green stickers here. I'm cutting at the 3.5 inch slit. Remember, Stripology rulers have slits in them, okay? So the rotary cutter blade sinks into it. Then I'm cutting again at 9 inches, okay? So there's teardrops on the bottom and at the top, and those are the points for you to basically drop in the blade of your rotary cutter, cut, and then exit. Drop in the blade, cut, and exit. So that it's not just a full slit, because then if you're trying to slide it in the really thin slit, you're going to be chipping off chunks of plastic, okay? So I drop it in. Make sure it's there. And I'm kind of at a crooked angle here because of the camera lens over my shoulder. I dropped it in the 3.5 inch line, which is where I have my little sticker. These stickers are great. Aside from the stickers, if you didn't have them or you didn't want to get them, there are other different little icons that Gudrun has put into the design here so that there's a little key. If you know you're cutting 2.5 inch strips, you go by where the squares are, and everywhere you see a square is a 2.5 inch cut. So if I had a square piece of fabric here doubled up, I could go 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10, like that, okay? So it makes it really easy. But when we're doing weird numbers like 3.5 and 9, it really helps to have those stickers, okay? So I think I cut through this one. Did I cut through this one? Let's try it again just in case. Nope. So I cut through 9, okay? So I cut at 3.5 and 9. Let's recap. There are 2 10-inch squares, one on top of the other, pretty sides facing up. I set the squares on point, okay? Then we took the white big cross line, halfway and halfway, going right through the 4 corners of the squares that were set on point. Then we cut at 3.5 and 9, okay? It sounds like a lot, but once you get 2 squares out and you say, okay, I'm not expecting to make a quilt block out of this, I'm just gonna walk through the steps and see if it works, then you're gonna be like, oh, duh, this is easy. And then you're gonna start cutting, okay? So here's what we have when we remove the ruler. Okay, and remember, these are 2 squares that are stacked, so I got a whole nother fabric underneath. Okay, so for now, let's move on to the next step. I'm gonna keep these here. We're gonna take away these 2 side triangles. Careful, because this is cut on the bias. Okay, now, what am I doing next? We're gonna turn it. We're still keeping the 2 layers stacked up. Okay, now I need to locate the center point, so I'll show you how I do it. I take these 2 and take them both and bring them over to this side, okay? And then I just lightly scratch at the halfway point, okay? That crease, you're not gonna mark it, you're not gonna do anything super extra with it. What I want you to do is just have a light crease there, and then I'll show you what I do. You probably can't see it, I can. So here's what I do. Immediately when I open it, I will slide it over and put it on one of the straight lines of my mat, okay? Because that way, and so it's coming out of this line. Can you see this line here? This is with the crease, and it's this line here. And so I do that because now when I put the Stripology squared ruler back on, I won't really be able to see the crease because I haven't marked it. But because I know that it is aligned with this line, I can now go in and make sure that I align it with the black line here. Something else that you could do is take those little ruler stickers, and let me grab a couple from my cutting mat here, and go like this and stick them on one of the straight lines so that you know, especially if you're going to be making a bunch of these blocks, you know that after you have that center crease, you're going to align it on that line. Make sense? And so they're here and here. And so now when we put the Stripology squared ruler on it, I know that I'm lining it up with this black line of my cutting mat, okay, as long as you don't move the fabric, right? So now I'm going to position the center white line on the center crease line, which is also the center black line that we just put these stickers on, this one on my mat. Whoop, Don't move it. And then any horizontal line on here, I'm going to align with this bottom edge. It's just to make sure that everything is straight, okay, and square. So it's on the black line, going right through the middle of my arrow stickers, like that. So there's my white line. It's right on top of the arrow. And right here too. And then I have a straight line, just any straight line lined up along the bottom edge. So that tells me that the ruler is square set on top of my fabric. And then guess what? We're going to cut again at the 3.5 and 9. So this one's kind of easy because you're cutting in the same spots to cut the pieces out. So we drop our blade in, slice. We drop our blade in at 9 and slice. Now we can remove this, and here's what we got. Okay, so now we swap the center, we take the sides, and already you have cut up those two 10-inch squares to create two different blocks with the same pieces but alternating centers and backgrounds. See that? Then we'll go back and revisit the two triangles that we cut off here. Whoops, that definitely doesn't go there. Let's go here, here. Let me slide it over because they kind of don't fit on the same mat. And then, of course, if this is the center, this is going to be the background here. Like that. And you see how that pops? Look at the difference that it makes having a dark, like a really dark and a really light fabric together. And so there's the block. I think every single one of you out there, if you've ever touched the rotary cutter and a mat and a piece of fabric before, can make a quilt with this. And even if not a big quilt, like I said, a table runner, a hot pad, something. But look, 2 blocks, done and done. So now to sew them, you have to make sure that you sew them and piece the blocks together in an order, right? If I tried to sew the top to the center like this, we have all this open space here. That's not going to work. So that's a clear indication that that's not the ones that need to be sewn first. You need to sew on the 2 side pieces first so that you end up with a longer seam here, and then we'll go in and add these ones that top them off. Okay? And the same thing for this one. So let's go ahead and piece one together. And so what I would do probably is just assembly line style a bunch of these. But I love it. It's such a great and efficient way to use up 2 10-inch square pieces of fabric, right? And still end up with 2 super cute blocks that can go into the project without losing one or, you know, some of it going to waste and all that. Okay. So let's start with the first one. I have white thread in here, which is probably not ideal for the dark fabric, but it'll work. A nice light or pale gray, a medium gray is great if you're making a project where you're piecing a bunch of different blocks that features different fabrics. Lights, mediums, and darks, a gray is going to be great. I use the white thread on these guys here, so I just, you know, I'm not going to change out the thread right now. Yes, Brenda says those blocks are very addictive. I have to agree. If you have scrappy yardage, if it's at least 10 inches wide, start chopping up 10-inch squares, 10-inch squares, 10-inch squares, and then imagine, all you got to do, it doesn't matter if the collections match, it doesn't matter if the fabrics go together, just pull one that's a dark, pull one that's a light, and you're going to have a gorgeous scrappy quilt by making a bunch of these. This is so, so fun. Okay, so we're going to take the center square and then add these guys to the side. Now, from starching the fabric, okay, look how crispy this matches. I mean, it's, oh, I love when the fresh cut edges of fabric are just like so crispy, because when I go like this and put it pretty sides touching, you don't even really have to add a pin. But look at that. It just, oh, it matches to perfection. And these were cut 2 layered up. 2 layers, okay, with the Stripology ruler, because the Stripology rulers are made by Creative Grids. So they have that grippy stuff that Creative Grids is known for underneath. And so even though it has all these slits, it still holds the fabric down even as you're making those slits. Look at that. Okay, let's go ahead and sew our scant 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I'm trying to get the sewing machine in the shot just because I like to show the settings. I know a lot of you maybe struggle, maybe you don't use a 1/4 of an inch foot on your machine, or if you do, you're just like, I don't know why. I'm using a 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 inch presser foot, but my blocks don't turn out the right size. Oftentimes those presser feet, they don't account for the thickness of the thread and the pressing over or pressing open of the seam allowance. And so it oftentimes tends to make your seam allowance a little bit bigger. That's why I prefer to keep a straight stitch setting on my machine. And then I just end up testing out a few sample runs of different needle positions so that I put the needle where I want it to be to get my scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I have a video tutorial on YouTube on how to exactly do that, so you can test it out and then know what the exact settings should be on your make and model of sewing machine, so you can end up with perfect 1/4 inch seams after the seam is sewn, after you press it, okay? So I am going to set my machine to 5.0 on this machine, sets the needle to just a scant 1/4 inch away from the edge of my regular presser foot. Now the seam or the stitch length, I'm going to set it to 2 millimeters, nice and short. This is a construction stitch. And then I'm going to start right here at the top, and I'm aligning the edge of my fabric with the edge of the presser foot. I don't need a specialty foot, and that's going to give me the scant 1/4 inch that I want. Okay, I'm going to pull my pins. As I go, I don't want to sew over them. Beautiful. There's no fabric stretching at the end. There's nothing, that doesn't match up. It's just perfection. And that is how I like my quilt blocks to be. Let me go ahead and trim my threads real quick. I have my little wool mat. Where'd you go? Here. I'll just use this smaller one just to give it a press, okay? If you have a wooden tailor's clapper, we don't just use it for hemming clothes, okay? Let me grab mine from under here. We also use it to press our seams, and I'm going to press away from the center square on these, and it just happens to be that that is also to the dark. So press to the dark. In other words, I lay the square down on my pressing mat, and I'm going to lift up this, and I'm going to slide in the edge of my iron. Careful not to yank and push the iron. You don't want to distort. You're more like pressing it right there. After I leave it there for a few seconds, I go ahead and add my wooden tailor's clapper, which is from Modern American Heritage. He makes amazing, gorgeous tailor's clappers. And then you take it off and ooh, there's nothing better than a flat, crispy seam. Look at that, perfection, end to end. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing to the other one. Put it where it goes visually first so you know you're doing it right. One on top of the other, pretty sides touching. We're going to place just 1 or 2 pins, one close to the top, one close to the bottom. And of course, if you were making a bunch of these blocks, you can set this whole thing up assembly line style. So you can really just sit there, sew, and then go press, and you'd be done in no time, which is what I plan to do for the baby quilt I'm making. They're good for quick projects that are still, give you a little bit of interest, like something that you actually have to think about. It's not just like sewing together a bunch of plain old squares. Okay. Oh, Joy says she's a beginner at quilt, and quilts are intimidating. You're an amazing teacher. You're making it less intimidating. I'm learning a lot. Awesome. Don't let it intimidate you. Like I said, if you do feel like that, but you know deep inside you really want to learn it, grab 2 pieces of fabrics. Convince yourself, these are my sacrificial fabric chunks. Just go through it, chop them up without the expectation of it having to be perfect. And trust me, once you see how easy it is, then you're going to be like, oh, I don't know what I was so scared about. And then you can start chopping into, the good fabric and working on some really, really beautiful projects. You just got to take it step by step because there are a lot of steps. It's just, it's like a little checklist. Go one by one by one. Look how cute. Okay, so once you have the 2 side pieces sewn to that center square, then you're going to go in and grab these guys. Okay, now for this one, it doesn't match exactly tip to tip. Okay, so what you need to do is center it, because when we're dealing with triangles, for those that don't know, we usually need to have some type of an overhang because you need to also accommodate the seam allowance. So I'll show you how that works. So we put this here, and you'll notice that the triangle is longer, okay, than the top edge of the unit that we just made. So if I put it pretty sides face down and you match up that raw edge together, notice you have a little tip sticking out, and this is what we would call a dog ear. You want to center it so you have about the same amount sticking out beyond there and beyond here, okay? And so once you have that, go ahead and put a pin in the center, helps so that you kind of anchor everything in the center. And then you can go in and maybe add 1 or 2 up here. Now, I would do these probably without any pins, but I'm just showing y'all, you know, good habits and things that are going to set you up for just more successful sewing and patchwork units in the end. The last thing you want to do is make 50 of these blocks and then realize that they aren't all the same size and you have to go back and trim all of them down to whatever the smallest size of the smallest one is, okay? Let's go here. Now, when we start sewing, that offset usually ends up being about the 1/4 of an inch that you need to account for seam allowance. So you'll see, if I start here, we're going to sew all the way down. I'm still aligning the fabric edge with the edge of my presser foot because remember, I moved the needle position so that it's exactly the scant 1/4 inch I want it to be away from the edge. Okay, and when I come out and I sew here, I'm going to be sewing right through here where the two fabrics kind of intersect. And I'm going to zoom in briefly just because I want y'all to see what I'm talking about. For those that maybe have never sewn a triangle, you know, triangle units or pieces before, right here is where I'm going to come out. Right there. Okay, and that's how I know that I kind of centered it correctly and you have exactly the distance that you need to center that. All right. Boom, right there. Okay. Let's press it again. Ooh, my crispy little block. It's just so satisfying when everything turns out beautifully. So now look what happens. Even though it might have looked weird because it's like this is a little bit bigger, it's sticking out, what's going on? Look what happens. You end up with the edge that comes here and then it picks up right there. Same thing on the other end of that triangle. Here and it goes out here, okay? This is obviously going to get trimmed up after we make all the blocks, and I'll trim one up for you so you can see how we would do it because we trim it up with the Stripology squared ruler also. Makes it for easy work. But it matches up here and here. This gets trimmed and cleaned off and then you end up chopping off the little dog ears that were sticking out, okay, from when we aligned everything. All right, so last one. Where are you? Right here. So cute. I love it. Okay. So remember, if you like these fruity fabrics, we have half-yard bundle. It's 3 yards total, and you get 6 half-yard cuts from 6 prints that I got from this fruity fabric collection by Maja Faber, and it's for Paintbrush Studio Fabrics. When I had my shop, my brick and mortar store, we only sold the Paintbrush Studio solids. Those are my favorite solids to use. So they have really, really great designer quality quilting cotton. So I'm happy to have this bundle in stock right now. Okay. Oh, there you are. My little screwdriver for changing my sewing machine needle. It got stuck to the magnet underneath that. All right, let's go ahead and stitch this guy up. Same thing. I'm kind of starting right in that pivot point of where the dog ear starts. Yep, we're good. Okay. Let's press this one and then we're going to trim it up. So now let's recall the size of the fabrics that we started cutting. We started off with 10-inch squares, okay? We're now going to trim up the block, the quilt block itself, to 9 inches square, and then it'll be finished at 8.5 inches square in the quilt or in the project, whatever you decide to do. But I think even, can you imagine a market tote bag made up of like the exterior with a bunch of these blocks? How cute would that be? Like a big old open market tote that you can take to the farmer's market and go shopping with all the cute little fruits. That's cute. All right. Okay. I'll set that aside because I'm going to make that block later. I don't know what I'm going to make now that I have 4, that I have cut up stuff to make 4 of these blocks. But if y'all go ahead and make something from your fabric bundle when you get it, let me know because I want, post pictures so we can see. All right. So let's go ahead and get this cutting mat lined up. I'm going to get rid of my little repositionable markers. I don't need those guys there, and I don't want to run the risk of chopping through them. So now we have a block. Did I press this super flat? I don't know if I only did the seam I sewed or the whole block. Let's go ahead and press the whole block flat. Just to get it to be super flat, because I'm going to put the ruler, the Stripology squared ruler on top of it to trim it, okay? Now remember, if you want to make a whole quilt, depending on the different size, you know, a crib quilt, a lap, a twin, whatever, queen, king, she had a bunch of sizes in there. This block is from the Kimberly quilt in the Stripology Mixology 3 book, okay? And I did put my affiliate link on where you can find it on Gudrun's website. So this is the Kimberly, and it comes in here, the crib, lap, twin, full, queen, and king. So you can see how many blocks you would need to make all those different layouts. And of course, since the pattern is in the book, it has all the instructions, yardage, how much to cut of each thing and all that. So it makes it real simple depending on the size you want to make, okay? Okay, awesome. Diana says, woohoo, I ordered my bundle. Awesome. Okay, let's get the Stripology squared ruler. Try not to snap it because I'm just like throwing stuff around here, but okay. And now we need to trim this up. This part, maybe you think it's a little tricky, but I'm going to walk you through it. We need to trim this down to 9 inches, okay? Grab my pointer tool. There is on the side here the numbers from 0 to 9, and that they equate to these black lines, okay? The black line at the top and at the bottom here at 0 is 9, okay? So I'm going from 0 to 9, and I'm going to try and match it up at the top and at the bottom. And then I want, again, so do you see where I have these 2 little blue arrows that I put the stickers on? This is the 4.5 inch line. Okay, there's a little white line that goes across this way at 4.5. And it's kind of fine. It's not as thick as the middle ones that we did before. So that's why I went ahead and put the little sticker there so I can remember, hey, it's that little thin white line. Now 4.5 is half of 9, right? So because we're trimming it down to 9 inches, lining it up at the halfway point, going through halfway here, is going to help us, right? Keep it centered so we don't mistakenly trim too much off of one side or the other, okay? So that 4.5 needs to go here, through this point, okay? So through 2 of the corners of that center square. So I'm gonna line that up, going through there, and at the same time, the black lines at 9, okay? You can slide them up a little bit. Anything that's sticking out beyond is going to get trimmed. So let me slide this over. We talked about the 9 inch line at the top, 9 inch line at the bottom, but we're working with a square, right? So we need to go 9 inch this way and 9 inch this way as well. So you're looking at black lines at the 9 inch mark. 0 here, 9 here. There's a slit right there, and 9 at the top. And then the 4.5 inch is in the middle. So let me slide over. And it's just like keeping an eye on 2 different things. You know, the 4.5 inch going right through the middle, and then the 4.5 inch vertically needs to go through the middle too, right? So we got 4.5 going this way, and I have 2 more corners, and that's why you see this little blue arrow here. This is 4.5. This doesn't have a line, it has a slit. So you're aligning that slit down these 2 points. So now we should have 2 4.5 inch lines splitting this right down the middle, making sure that we have straight lines going through all 4 corners of the center block. Does that make sense? That's how you're balancing out what's in the center, so then you can trim what's on the sides, okay? It's a little tricky maybe at first, and it's, you see, I see Thunderous Wizard said, this ruler has intrigued me. Do you ever shave off cutting in the slits? Oh, do you ever shave off of the ruler? That's never happened to me, and I have all the Stripology rulers. It's because when you drop in the blade, the blade can't really like pop off. If you're putting any type of pressure down, it stays in the slit because the acrylic kind of hugs the sides of the blade, so it doesn't really like jump over. It's not like when we cut on the side, like on an open edge side of a regular ruler, you know, we take off chunks off the corners. We don't really have that here because you have the open teardrop so that you can drop it in, and then once it's here, it doesn't really, it can't get out, you know, it stays snug in there. Okay, so I need to cut at 0 and 9 because it's at 9 inches. I just want to make sure that everything else is going down the middle. That one is going down the middle of there, and this line is going down the middle of there and there. And once I have that, I just look to see 0 to 9, so you can kind of see, and you'll see it now once I trim it. I'm going to cut at 0, nice clean cut edge. We're getting rid of the dog ears. Look at this. Do you see how I'm not putting any pressure down anywhere else on the ruler? Nothing is moving, and I can easily cut. I love this about these Stripology rulers. I only put my fingers right here, and nothing moves, even though I have a huge chunk of acrylic still to the right. And then the same thing at 9, okay? So now when I remove this, we have two clean cut edges, these guys, okay? And you probably guessed it, all you gotta do is turn this. If you had a rotating mat, which I do, but I had this one on here so I didn't put it on, you would just rotate it 90 degrees and then you're gonna do the same thing. Make those 4.5-inch lines, go right through the center of that block, and then of course, you know, now these two are straight edges, or excuse me, top and bottom are straight edges since I turned it, and you're gonna line that up at 9 and at 0 so that the height is the 9 inches that you want. So if you kind of wrap your head around what is it that you need, and you remember, hey, I'm trimming this block to 9 inches square. You're gonna see, okay, here's 9, let me line that up there. Here's 9, let me line that up there, okay? And so 4.5 is running right down the middle. That's this line, that where I have my arrow. And let's do the other 4.5. It's cutting right across. Looks good. Everything else is 9 inches here. And so now I just need to cut same spots, 0 and 9, right? At the beginning and at the end of a 9-inch block. Again, you see I'm only holding that 1 inch of acrylic that's there and nothing moves. Okay, remove this and ta-da. That's all you're trimming. So very little fabric waste, and now you have a perfect 9-inch by 9-inch square block, unfinished, okay? In the project, obviously, it will be 8.5. We can double check this. Ooh, perfection. I mean, if I do say so myself, look at that. 9 by 9, beautiful, love it. Everything is centered. You don't have more background fabric here, here. If you use a Stripology ruler because of those slits and you balance everything out with all those guidelines that help us keep things centered, you know that you're gonna trim it up perfectly, okay? So if you're looking to get your hands on the Stripology squared ruler, remember I put my affiliate link in the description box below. We've put it in the chat, it's in the Facebook caption as well. This is a good size one to start with. If you didn't try the mini, or maybe you have the mini and you joined us for the table runner we did at the beginning of the year, this is a great next one to do because like I said, you could even trim up 12.5-inch square blocks with it. Okay, let's see. Perfect. So I was just making sure I wasn't missing anything, but I was just doing a demo on how to make this block from the Kimberly quilt that's in the Stripology Mixology 3. Links to the book, the rulers, everything is in the description box below. And for those of you, I need to finish that block, but for those of you that like these fabrics and want to get your hands on this fruity fabric collection, we do have bundles in our online shop, 6 half-yard cuts, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are the 6 fabrics that you get, and you get a half yard of each, and it's on sale. It's definitely discounted for being designer quality quilting cottons, like what you would get at your local quilt shop. So check them out. I think they go great together. I love all these teals and minties with these orangey and kind of peachy colors. Anyway, so many ideas brewing. I hope those of you that ordered your bundle will post pictures of the projects that you make with it. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thanks for asking great questions. And I hope that if you do have a Stripology ruler that you go ahead and take it out. If not, make sure to use my affiliate links in the caption, description, post, all of that below so that you can go ahead and surf Gudrun's site a little bit and see what Stripology ruler you might want to get since there are several in different sizes, okay? Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you find some time to do something crafty this week. Maybe you get your bundle by the weekend and you start cutting into it. That would be fun. But I will see y'all in the next video, and thanks again for tuning in. Bye, everybody.